The moment she left this world, 4 hearts began to beat again. The final decision of a 70-year-old woman completely changed the future of 4 families. And proved that death doesn't always mean the end. It can become a new beginning for someone else. A heart, a liver, kidneys, and corneas. One person's death became the life of 4 others. For a grandmother who had lived alone in a small apartment, her ordinary, quiet days turned into a miracle for 4 families. Even when we leave this world, we should still be of help to someone. This one sentence she often said. How did it become reality? Today, I'd like to share that story with you. If this story touches your heart, please, before we begin, click subscribe and like. Your small click helps stories like this stories of life and love reach many more people. Now, let's begin the story of 70-year-old grandmother Lee Jung-hwa and the last gift she left behind. One cold morning in January 2025, in a worn-out apartment building on the 6th floor in Mapo-gu, Seoul, 70-year-old Lee Jung-hwa woke up to her 6 a.m. alarm. Her knees felt stiff and sore, but she was used to this pain. After all, a body that has lived for 70 years doesn't move as easily as it once did. Still, her days began in exactly the same way, every single morning. She opened the bedroom window. Cold air flowed into the room, and the chill of a winter dawn brushed against her face. When she stepped into the living room, it was completely quiet. Only the ticking sound of the clock echoed regularly on the wall. After her husband passed away 5 years earlier, that sound had become her only constant companion. She went into the kitchen, turned on the light, and opened the refrigerator. There were just kimchi, doenjang, and a carton of milk, more than enough for one person. She boiled some water, made a cup of instant coffee, and took a sip. The warm bitterness spread through her mouth. This taste was the signal that her morning had officially begun. At 7 a.m., Jung-hwa put on her coat and picked up her shopping bag. She opened the door and started walking down the stairs. There was no elevator in the old 6-story building, so climbing up and down was hard every single day. But if she paused for a moment on the 3rd floor to catch her breath, she could keep going again. And every time she did, she felt thankful that she could still walk on her own. The traditional market in Mapo was a place she visited 3 times a week. It was full of people's voices and the calls of vendors. In that noisy, lively space, she felt that she was truly alive. When she stood in front of the vegetable stall, a woman in her 60s, the vendor Ms. Kim, greeted her warmly. "Oh, Ms. Jung-hwa, you're here. What would you like to buy today?" "Some spinach and carrots, please," she answered. Ms. Kim carefully picked out fresh vegetables and put them into a plastic bag. Jung-hwa handed her a 5,000 won bill and received her change. Next, she headed to the fish stall. The sound of chopping fish echoed, and the smell of the sea was strong in the air. To her, that smell was simply proof that the fish were fresh. "Grandma, today's mackerel is really good. 2 for 5,000 won. How about it? Just 1, please. I live alone." "That's too much for me," she replied. "Ah, you should just take 2. You can freeze 1 for later." "Really, it's just me. 1 is enough." The shopkeeper's expression darkened slightly. Realizing her situation, he quietly wrapped just 1 mackerel and handed it to her. Leaving the market, Jung-hwa walked toward a nearby church. It was Wednesday, the day of the early morning prayer meeting, and she could already hear the church bells ringing in the distance. Climbing the church stairs, she grew short of breath, but she didn't stop. When she opened the door to the sanctuary, warm air greeted her. She sat quietly in the back row, closed her eyes, and began to pray. "Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for giving me the strength to endure even when I miss my husband. Thank you that even though I am alone, I can still live with some health. And when my time comes, please let me be of help to someone." Her prayer was simple, but earnest. At 2 p.m., when she returned home, she set the market bags down in the kitchen and sat on the sofa. Her legs were aching, but she took a moment to look around the living room, then raised her eyes toward the photo on the wall. It was her husband's portrait. Park Chol-soo, born in 1950, passed away in 2020. His face in the photo was still gentle and calm. Talking to his photo, she said, "Honey, I bought mackerel today, the kind you used to like. But I just bought one. Without you, I don't need any more." There was, of course, no answer. But she kept talking anyway, and her eyes filled with tears. She opened the door to the small room. Her husband's room had been left exactly the same for 5 years. The bed, the desk, the wardrobe, everything remained as it had been that last day. On top of the desk lay his glasses. She picked them up and wiped the lenses, murmuring, "These are the last ones you wore, right?" Then she opened the drawer. His watch, his wallet, medicine packets, and between them, a yellow envelope. On the envelope, it said organ donation information. The moment she saw those letters, the memories from that day, 5 years ago, came rushing back. In the summer of 2020, her husband had collapsed from a heart attack. At the emergency room, the doctor had carefully asked, "The patient's condition is very serious. Have you or your family ever considered organ donation?" Jung-hwa had hesitated. She had never properly thought about organ donation. She couldn't respond. And at that moment, her son had answered firmly, "No, we've never thought about that." The doctor left. That night, her husband passed away. No organs were donated. For 5 long years, she regretted that moment. "I should have said yes, someone's life could have been saved." That regret remained lodged deep in her heart. One cold day in December 2024, Jung-hwa went to the Korea Organ Donation Agency in Jongno, Seoul. When she opened the door and walked inside, the warm heating wrapped around her chilled body. She went up to the reception desk and spoke to a woman in her 30s. "I'm here to register as an organ donor," she said softly. "Of course. Please come this way," the staff member replied, leading her into a consultation room. After they sat down, the staff member asked gently, "Does your family know you're doing this?" "No, I haven't told them yet," she replied. "It would be good to tell them later. We do need family consent at the time of donation," the woman explained. "Yes, I understand," said Jung-hwa. The staff handed her a form labeled Life-Sharing Consent Form. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the pen. But she didn't hesitate. She wrote name Lee Jung-hwa, date of birth March 15, 1955. After signing, her heart felt a little lighter. The staff smiled and said, "Thank you so much. You're making a wonderful decision." Jung-hwa smiled back. "It's late, but this is something I should have done," she said quietly. January came. Winter deepened. Still, Jung-hwa continued to take care of the small apartment garden, sweeping away fallen leaves and getting ready for spring. Wearing gloves, she swept the ground with a broom. An elderly neighbor walking by said, "Jung-hwa, why are you out here in this cold? Why bother with the garden in winter? If we want flowers in spring, we have to prepare now," she answered with a smile. "Oh, just leave it. It's too cold," the neighbor replied. "It's all right. I like doing this," she said, and continued sweeping. As she worked, one thought briefly crossed her mind. Will I be here to see the flowers bloom this spring? The thought flickered and then faded. Her hands didn't stop. In mid-February, while she was washing dishes in the kitchen, the world suddenly started to spin. She grabbed the sink and took deep breaths. After about 5 minutes, the dizziness subsided. She decided it was probably just her age, and tried not to think too much of it. But the dizziness kept returning from time to time. In early March, she finally went to the local clinic. A male doctor in his 50s asked, "What brings you in today? Where does it hurt?" She replied, "I've been feeling dizzy quite often these days." He checked her blood pressure. The numbers were high. "We should check your heart more thoroughly," he said. "I recommend you visit a larger hospital." A week later, she went to the cardiology department at Seoul National University Hospital. She had an echocardiogram, and the doctor pointed to the monitor and explained, "There is a problem with one of your heart valves. It's not an immediate emergency, but it does require careful management. We'll start you on medication." She received the prescription, picked up her medicine at the pharmacy, and headed home. On her way, she looked up and noticed buds on the cherry blossom. March 15, 2025, the morning of her 70th birthday. She boiled seaweed and made herself a simple birthday meal: rice, seaweed soup, and kimchi. Sitting alone at the small table, she said, "Thank you for the food," and brought a spoonful of soup to her mouth. It tasted good, but a quiet loneliness hung in the air. "Last year, my sons came over," she thought to herself, glancing at her phone. There was a single text from her eldest son: "Happy birthday, Mom. I'll call you this evening." At 3 p.m., she left home to go to the market. Walking toward the bus stop, she looked at the cherry blossoms beginning to open along the street. "They're so pretty," she smiled. At the bus stop, she reached out to sit on the bench, but suddenly, the world spun again. This time, she lost her balance completely and collapsed onto the ground. A young man in his 20s who was passing by ran over. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he shouted. There was no answer. He immediately called 119. "Someone just collapsed at the bus stop. Please come quickly." 5 minutes later, the sound of an ambulance siren filled the air. Paramedics rushed to her side, placed her on a stretcher, and headed straight to the emergency room. Patient coming in. The medical team rushed her through the emergency room doors. "Her blood pressure is dropping," a nurse shouted as the heart monitor beeped loudly. After a CT scan, the doctor stared at the monitor with a heavy expression. "It's a cerebral hemorrhage. The bleeding is extensive," he said. Even with surgery, his voice trailed off. A nurse searched her bag, found her phone, unlocked it with her fingerprint, and called her eldest son, Park Min-jun. "Hello? Is this the patient's guardian? This is the emergency room at Seoul National University Hospital. Your mother has collapsed. Please come as soon as possible." An hour later, out of breath from rushing, Min-jun arrived at the hospital and sat down in the consultation room. The doctor explained, "Your mother's condition is very serious. The cerebral hemorrhage is widespread. It will be extremely difficult for her to regain consciousness." "And then?" "I'm very sorry," the doctor said quietly. As Min-jun lowered his head, the doctor spoke again, carefully this time. "There is something else. Your mother registered as an organ donor. We found this card in her wallet." He handed over a yellow donor card. Seeing it, Min-jun's eyes widened. "We didn't know," he said, stunned. The doctor explained that the family's consent would be needed. By evening, his younger brother, Park Min-seo, and his youngest sister, Park Min-young, arrived. The three of them sat together in the hospital lounge. "Hung, what happened to Mom?" Min-seo asked. Min-jun explained she had a cerebral hemorrhage. "The bleeding is too wide. They said she won't wake up." Silence filled the space. Min-young started to cry. At that moment, Min-jun showed them the donor card. "Look at this. It's an organ donor card. They said Mom signed up for it." "Mom? She never told us," Min-young said through tears. "I didn't know either," added Min-seo. The three of them stared at the small yellow card. Then Min-young spoke. "Mom always said this, remember? When Dad died? She regretted not donating his organs. She told me once. She said, if it were me, I'd want to donate. Min Jun let out a deep sigh. Min Seo looked at him. Hung, let's do what Mom wanted. Let's follow her wish. After a moment, Min Jun nodded. Together, the three siblings went to the doctor and said, we agree. We'll follow our mother's decision. The doctor bowed his head slightly. Thank you. This is a very precious decision, he said. At 2 a.m. on March 16, 2025, the lights in the operating room switched on brightly. The surgical teams had gathered the lead surgeons, anesthesiologists, and nurses all dressed in white surgical gowns, fully prepared. On the operating table, Young-hwa lay peacefully, almost as if she were simply asleep. Everything is ready. We'll begin now, the surgeon said. The room grew quiet. Only the sound of machines and the steady beeping of the heart monitor filled the space. Beginning heart retrieval. Prepare for liver retrieval. Kidneys ready to be moved. Prepare cornea preservation solution. 4 teams moved simultaneously. In that moment, one person's body was being divided into 4 hopes. At 4 a.m., voices echoed. Heart is ready for transport. Liver retrieval complete, preparing for transfer. Kidneys are ready. Corneas preserved successfully. Each organ was placed in a special container, filled with preservation solution and ice. 4 ambulances, each carrying a part of her, left the hospital in 4 different directions, sirens wailing in the early morning darkness. 1. A father waiting for a heart soul. At a hospital in Gangnam, Kim Tae-jun, a father of 2, had been fighting heart disease for 5 long years. His 8-year-old daughter had asked him many times, Dad, when will you come home? He would always answer, soon, I'll be home soon, even though he had no real promise to offer. That dawn, the Dr. Sahida donor has been found. We can proceed with the heart transplant. His wife burst into tears, repeating over and over, thank you so much. In the operating room, a new heart was placed carefully inside Tae-jun's chest. Soon, the monitor showed a strong, steady heartbeat. Somewhere, a heart that had stopped was now beating again inside his body. 2. A young mother with end-stage liver disease, Busan. In a hospital in Busan, 35-year-old mother of 2, Lee Soo-jin, was in the final stage of liver cirrhosis. Her 5-year-old son had asked, Mom, does it hurt? She always smiled and said, I'm fine, though she was far from fine. That dawn, the doctor came in. A donor liver has become available. On the way into surgery, Soo-jin clasped her hands and whispered, Lord, thank you, over and over. After a 6-hour surgery, the new liver started functioning properly in her body. For the first time in a long while, her test results began to show improvement instead of decline. 3. A man tied to a dialysis machine, Incheon. In a hospital in Incheon, 63-year-old Choi Young-soo had lived with chronic kidney failure for 8 years. 3 times a week, 4 hours each time, he sat in the dialysis room. Here for dialysis again today? The nurse would ask in a tired tone. Yes, again, he answered with an equally weary voice. That afternoon, the call came. Mr. Choi, a donor has been matched for you. Tears welled up in his eyes. Thank you, I don't know who they are, but thank you, he said. After his kidney transplant, for the first time in 8 years, he slept through the night without dialysis and without the fear of not waking up. 4. A young man seeing the world clearly, Daejeon. In a hospital in Daejeon, 25-year-old Park Jun-ho had lived his whole life with congenital corneal opacity. The world had always been blurred. Mom, I can't really see your face, he had once said. His mother had answered, it's okay. One day, you'll see clearly, though she herself didn't know when or how. That evening, the words finally came. A donor cornea is available. After the surgery, the next day, the doctor began removing the bandages from his eyes. Slowly open your eyes, the doctor said. Jun-ho blinked. The light felt sharp, and shapes slowly came into focus. Then he saw it. His mother's face clearly, for the first time in his life. I can see you, Mom. I can really see you, he shouted, his voice shaking. His mother's face crumpled as she burst into tears. Mother and son cried in each other's arms, holding on as if they would never let go. On March 18, at a hospital funeral hall in Seoul, the funeral bell tolled. In the center of the room, surrounded by white chrysanthemums, was the portrait of Lee Young-hwa, smiling gently. Her eldest son, Min-jun, greeted the visitors. May she rest in peace, they said. Thank you for coming, he answered, looking up at his mother's photo. With a tightening throat, his youngest sister, Min-young, pulled a small envelope from her bag. Oppa, I found this while going through Mom's things, she said. They opened the envelope. Inside was a small handwritten note. Don't cry for me. Remember me. I am not disappearing, I am being shared. Her handwriting was small and neat. Min-jun pressed the note against his chest. Min-seo said quietly, Mom didn't disappear. She's still here living inside other people. The three siblings bowed deeply before their mother's photo. Mom, thank you. We love you. We will never forget you, they said. That night, rain fell outside the funeral hall window. Looking out at the rain, Min-jun murmured. It feels like Mom is saying goodbye, like she's telling us, I'm okay. You'll be okay too. The three of them stood by the window, watching the rain fall through the night. By September, Tae-jun was walking in the park. With his children, holding his daughter's hand. Dad, look. The swings, she shouted. Let's go. He replied, smiling. The warmth of her small hand in his was proof that he was still alive. The heart beating in his chest had once belonged to someone else, but now, it was his heart, his life. Dad, are you happy? His daughter asked. Yes, he said, looking up at the sky. I'm really happy. Silently, he added, thank you to the person I'll never meet. In Busan, Soo-jin was in the kitchen frying eggs. Mom, is breakfast ready? Her child called out. Yes, almost, she answered. Her husband came up behind her and hugged her gently. You've gotten so much healthier, he said. Soo-jin placed her hand on her abdomen. And answered softly, she's here, you know. The person who saved me. She's living inside me. I'm so grateful. In Incheon, young Soo had started volunteering at the hospital. Sir, please sit over here, he said, guiding a new dialysis patient. Thank you, the patient said. No, thank you, he replied. I received a kidney transplant, too. I was in that chair for years. Now that I've received so much, want to give something back. He smiled, his eyes kind. In Daejeon, Jun-ho had returned to university. Sitting in the lecture hall, he could clearly see the professor, the chalk on the blackboard, and the faces of his classmates. The world was so sharp and vivid that he often found himself simply staring in awe. After class, he sat alone and wrote a letter. To my donor, whose name I do not know. Every view I see, every face I recognize, every word I read, I see it all because of you. I believe you live on in everything I see. Thank you. He sent the letter to the Organ Donation Center. In April 2026, an event for Organ Donation Day was held at COEX in Seoul. On the stage of the life-sharing event, donor families, transplant recipients, and medical staff all gathered. On the large screen behind them, the list of donors from 2025 appeared. For a brief moment, one name appeared. Lee Young-hwa 1955-2025. The instant her name appeared, Min-jun stood up and began to clap. Tears streamed down his face. Next to him, Min-seo and Min-young also stood and clapped, honoring their mother. After the ceremony, a man approached them. "Excuse me, are you the family of Ms. Lee Young-hwa?" "Yes, we are," answered Min Jun. The man bowed deeply. "I received your mother's heart," he said. "Thank you. Truly, thank you. Because of your mother, my children still have their father." "It's not as you should thank," said Min Jun softly. "This is what our mother wanted." The man swallowed back tears. "I will live well," he said. "I will live in a way that honors her." Min Jun took his hand. "Please stay healthy," he said. "That's what our mother would want most." In the spring of 2027, 2 years later, Min Jun went to his mother's old apartment to organize her belongings. When he opened the door, a faint smell of dust greeted him. He stepped into the living room and looked up at her photo on the wall. "Mom," he whispered. Below the photo stood a small frame. In it were the words his mother once wrote. "People may leave, but love continues its journey." He smiled faintly. "Yes, Mom," he said softly. "I understand now." He opened the window. A breeze carried the scent of cherry blossoms into the room. "You liked this smell, didn't you?" he said to her photo. "Mom, the people you saved are all doing well. They're raising their children, working, studying, living their lives. All because of you. Thank you, Mom," he said. At that moment, a gentle wind brushed past, and in the photograph, his mother seemed to be smiling just a little brighter. "Everyone, thank you so much for staying with me until the end." Of grandmother Lee Young-hwa's story. She was a 70-year-old woman, a quiet grandmother living alone in a small apartment. In many ways, she was just like so many of our mothers and grandmothers. But her final decision was anything but ordinary. Her heart, liver, kidneys, and cornea saved 4 lives. A father in his 40s can now walk with his children in the park. A mother in her 30s can cook for her family again. A man in his 60s spends his days helping other patients at the hospital. A young man in his 20s now sees the world clearly with his own eyes. All of this because of one grandmother's last gift. In Korea today, around 40,000 people are waiting for an organ transplant. But the number of donors is still far too small. No one is forcing you to make a decision. But perhaps, after hearing this story, you might ask yourself, when I leave this world someday, what will I leave behind? Grandmother Lee answered that question clearly. She chose to leave life itself. She chose to share love. And she kept that promise until the very end. Registering as an organ donor in Korea can be done easily online or through dedicated agencies. You don't have to decide today. But maybe, just once, it is worth thinking about. If my last moment could become someone else's beginning, would I be willing to say yes? If this story touched your heart, please click subscribe and like. Your support is not just a simple click, it is a way of helping stories like this, stories of life, love, and courage, reach someone who might need them desperately. Please also share your thoughts in the comments. I've thought about organ donation. I want to talk about this with my family. I deeply respect Grandmother Lee. Every message you leave may become comfort and courage for someone else. If you turn on notifications, you won't miss the next story, another life, another act of kindness, another quiet miracle. People may leave this world, but love keeps moving from one person to another. Thank you so much for watching.